You ever hear the sound a glass makes when it doesn't shatter? Just cracks quietly and rolls under a buffet table while everyone's too busy laughing at your wife's joke to notice? That's how it started. Not with a bang, not with a confession, but with a punchline. And I was it. It was our 10th anniversary. String lights, catered food, the kind of soft jazz playlist that tells your guests, we're pretending this is still a happy marriage. She was holding court at the center of the backyard like she was born to sparkle. And me? I was holding a plate of cold chicken sauté and the slow realization that I had become background furniture in my own life. He's so sensitive, she said, loud enough for the table but soft enough to pass as teasing. Last week, I stayed out until 3 a.m., and he asked if I still liked being married. Like he was handing me a Yelp review form. Laughter. Real. Wheezing, knee-slapping laughter. They clapped. Not for us. For her. Someone elbowed me. She's just kidding, man. Yeah? So was the Titanic's lookout, probably. That's when I walked out. No warning. No shoes. Just into the wet grass, past the garden she never watered, the fire pit I built with my own hands, alone, always alone, and through the line of parked cars. The driveway swallowed my footsteps. Her voice came behind me, suddenly soft, suddenly sweet. Come back, Albert. I love you. Don't go, not like this. She only said, I love you, when I was leaving. I turned. My face was on fire, my hands trembling. You humiliated me, I said. In front of everyone. You embarrassed me, she snapped. You were hovering. Looking. Lost. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because that's when I realized I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her prop. I drove that night, out past the edge of town, no destination. Just me, the hum of tires, and a sky as dark as my thoughts. I slept in the car. Well, tried to. The next morning, her text started. Where are you? You made your point. But one stopped me cold. People are asking questions. I need to know what to tell them. That told me everything. She didn't care that I left. She cared that people noticed. And that, my friend, was the day I stopped being her husband and started being something else entirely. The thing about betrayal? It's never delivered in a manila envelope or a villain's monologue. It shows up in tiny details, like confetti in her hair. She was slicing chicken when it happened. Too aggressively. The knife screeched against the porcelain like it was trying to scream for me. We sat there in silence, two strangers divided by mashed potatoes and years of polite distance. Then, without lifting her eyes, she said it. He told me I laugh more when I'm not with you. Just like that. Like she was reading the weather. Dry with a 70% chance of complete emotional erosion. I didn't answer. What's the comeback to that? Glad someone appreciates your giggle? Then she added, don't take it personally. You'll get over it. The empathy of a wet sponge. I stood up. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough to make the chair legs sigh against the tile. She looked up, finally. Like I broke our unspoken contract. Stay silent. Stay small. Stay forgettable. I left the house. No jacket. No shoes. Just socks and confusion. I walked for miles. Around the block. Past the grocery store where I used to pick up almond milk she never drank. Ended up sitting behind a dumpster on a milk crate that smelled more honest than our dining room ever had. When I finally wandered back, I didn't walk in. I looked through the window. There she was. Humming. Smiling. Wiping down the counter like she hadn't just gutted me with a casual sentence. And that's when I saw it. The envelope. White. Wax-sealed. Gold emblem. Looked expensive. Confetti in her hair. A celebration I wasn't invited to. I didn't ask questions. I didn't cause a scene. I just went back to the truck and let the silence press in. Next morning, she didn't even ask where I'd been. Just made smoothies. Said I was being weird. Then came the message from her sister. Lorna. Just a screenshot. No text. None needed. It was Tessa, my wife, wearing a red dress I hadn't seen, laughing into another man's chest. His hand on her waist. The caption? She said yes. I dropped the phone. Not out of rage. Just gravity catching up to my disbelief. She was engaged. While married. To me. Turns out the confetti wasn't for a party. It was for her engagement. To someone else. And suddenly, I wasn't wondering if she'd cheated. I was wondering when exactly I became the spare key she stopped carrying. They say when someone shows you who they are, believe them. But what they don't say is how long it can take your heart to catch up to your eyes. The morning after that message, I walked into our bedroom, not to talk, not to fight. Just to grab my wallet. I passed her in the hallway. She was humming. Always humming, like betrayal came with a playlist. Then I saw it. A cream-colored envelope, sitting like a dare on the nightstand. No name. No explanation. I opened it anyway. Join us in celebrating the engagement of Tessa Marie Whitlock and Rory James Calder. Date. Time. Dress code. Elegant evening attire. Elegant. Nothing like our marriage, which had become a tangle of small resentments and shrinking rooms. I stared at the print, at the calligraphy, like if I looked long enough, it might rewrite itself. Spoiler. It didn't. That night, I didn't sleep in the truck. I didn't sleep at all. Just sat staring at the ceiling, wondering how you end up RSVPing to your own replacement. The next day, I moved through the house like a ghost. She was cheerful. Too cheerful. Making coffee. Packing her gym bag. Hey, she said, can you pick up some dry cleaning? The blue dress. I blinked. The blue dress. The one she wore when we renewed our vows 5 years ago. Was she planning to wear it? To her engagement party? I didn't answer. Just nodded like a man rehearsing his exit. Because I had made a decision. If she was going to make her break clean, then I'd return the favor. But where she opted for lies wrapped in lace, I went for something quieter. Colder. Final. And while she thought she was the only one rewriting the story, I had already started the last chapter. You don't just disappear overnight. It takes planning, timing, a little luck, and the kind of patience that comes from months of being spoken to like a bad habit. I started small. Canceled the gym membership she never knew I had. Closed the joint savings account. Quietly sold my old guitar on Craigslist to a teenager who thanked me like I'd handed him Excalibur. Shifted my paycheck to a new account she didn't have access to. Took a photo of the dog we used to talk about getting but never did. Then I packed 2 bags, nothing more. No framed photos. No wedding ring. Just clothes, a laptop, and the watch my father left me when he died. The one Tessa always said was too sentimental to wear. Turns out, she was right. It belonged in a different life. I didn't leave a note. I left something better, absence. The morning I walked out, she was in the shower. I heard her humming through the steam, some pop song that made betrayal sound catchy. I didn't look back. Just picked up my bags, locked the door behind me, and walked away from the woman who once cried when I kissed her in the rain. Funny, what becomes irrelevant? I checked into a cheap motel about 30 minutes outside of town. Nothing fancy. Just 4 walls and quiet. The guy at the front desk didn't ask questions. He handed me a room key with a broken tag and a nod that said, "We've all got something we're escaping." The room smelled like lemon cleaner and regret. Perfect. For the first time in months, I slept like a man with no expectations on his shoulders. No passive-aggressive comments over dinner. No lipstick-stained wine glasses left out as evidence of someone else's celebration. I woke up to sunlight filtering through cracked blinds and realized I hadn't dreamed about her. Progress. The first message came at 8:04 a.m. Where are you? Then 8:19. I'm not mad. Just talk to me. By 9:15, it had escalated to, "You're acting like a child. I'm worried sick." She wasn't. She was unraveling. Not because she missed me, but because I interrupted her narrative. Because the man who always folded the laundry, apologized first, made her coffee exactly the way she liked it, had finally folded himself out of the story. By noon, she called my mother. Then my best friend. Then even my boss, who texted me, "You good?" with the kind of concern that only shows up once you're already gone. I didn't answer anyone. Not yet. Instead, I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just far enough that the radio stations changed and the road signs stopped mentioning our hometown. Around dusk, I stopped at a diner. The kind where the coffee's weak and the pie is strong. A waitress named Rita called me Han and didn't blink when I said I was just passing through. She handed me a menu and said, "Some things taste better when you don't look back." I liked Rita. Back at the motel, my phone had 17 missed calls and a dozen texts. The last one stopped me. I made a mistake. Come home. Please. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even acknowledgement. It was panic. Tessa had realized something. I wasn't coming back. And it was tearing her narrative apart. Because if I stayed gone long enough, people would start asking her the one question she couldn't control. What did you do? The thing about people like Tessa? They can manipulate, perform, even gaslight. But they cannot survive uncertainty. They need the illusion of control. Of being the one who left first, who chose better, who upgraded. I had denied her that. I turned off the phone and slid it under the mattress. Next morning, I bought a burner. Clean slate. New number. I texted my lawyer. Started drafting the divorce paperwork. No theatrics. No dramatic confrontation. Just legal precision. Cold. Exact. It took 3 days for Tessa to find my brother. She left a voicemail on his phone that sounded like she was trying to cry but forgot how. She's desperate, he told me over a beer. She's not used to being ignored. I nodded. She'll adapt. Then came the kicker. She canceled the engagement party. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't tell Rory why, he added. Just said it wasn't the right time. I almost smiled. Almost. Because now, Tessa was alone. Not adored. Not chased. Just observed. And in that silence, she would finally hear what she'd been avoiding. That I had always been there. Quiet. Loyal. Real. And now, I wasn't. She had mistaken reliability for weakness. Misread silence for softness. Forgot that the man who folds his socks also remembers every detail. Like the day she said, I love you, but I miss who I used to be. That's when I knew she was already gone. I just hadn't packed yet. So here I am, in a motel off the interstate, drinking bad coffee, watching the sunrise. And for the first time in a long time, I feel free. There's a special kind of power in going invisible when it's a choice. Not the kind where you're ignored in your own home or talked over in group conversations about weekend plans. That's passive invisibility. That's being slowly erased. No, I mean the kind where you pull your presence out of someone's life like a magician snapping the tablecloth off a set dinner. Everything's still standing, but nothing is quite the same. It had been 9 days since I walked out. 9 days since I went from husband to haunting. Tessa had sent 42 texts, 16 voicemails, and 1 email with the subject line, "Please read." I didn't. I scanned it. The way you'd scan a weather report before going out into the storm you already know is coming. She tried all the stages: confusion, denial, anger, bargaining, a deeply misguided flirtation with self-awareness, and finally, silence. That's when I knew I'd won round 1. Now, I wasn't aiming to punish. I wasn't out for drama. If I wanted revenge, I'd have made this a spectacle. Thrown my ring at her feet, stormed into the engagement party like a soap opera ex-husband, ruined her new fantasy mid-toast. But that wasn't my style. I wasn't the thunder. I was the fault line. So I focused on the plan. A clean legal exit. A new job offer, 1 state over, quiet town, remote option, paid just enough and demanded just little enough. I filed the papers. My lawyer called me to confirm the documents had been served. She didn't say much, he said, voice dry as the manila folders stacked behind him. Just sat there, read through the whole thing, then signed. No questions. No arguments. That didn't surprise me. Tessa had always known how to pivot. When backed into a corner, she didn't fight, she reinvented. Like a magician pulling a dove from a hat, hoping no one asked where the rabbit went. But I had pulled the dove from her sleeve. I'd seen the trapdoor. And I didn't clap. The next day, I visited our old neighborhood. Not to see her. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I just needed to see if I felt anything. Nostalgia. Regret. Maybe the ghost of the man I used to be. Instead, I found apathy. The dogwood tree we planted in year 3 of the marriage? Still standing. Blossoming, even. The new neighbors had painted the mailbox. A kid's bike was parked outside. Life had moved on. So had I. But the real revelation came that afternoon. I walked into my bank to close our last joint safety deposit box, something we used maybe twice. It mostly held paperwork and memories, like the final boss level of marital obligations. I gave them my ID. Signed the form. Waited for the vault access. That's when I saw her. Not Tessa. Rory. The man she got engaged to while she was still using my last name to sign mortgage papers. He didn't see me. He was in a corner booth at the coffee shop across the street, scrolling through his phone. Alone. He looked small. Not physically. He was one of those, I do CrossFit, ask me how types. But the kind of small you only notice when someone's sitting still and they don't know they're being watched. He wasn't glowing with the confidence of a man recently engaged. He looked like he was bracing for news. Like maybe he'd already heard it. Like maybe Tessa had told him I served her papers. Or worse, maybe she hadn't. I stared for a few more seconds, then walked on. Didn't approach. Didn't reveal myself. Let him wonder. Because the worst punishment isn't confrontation, it's ambiguity. Unanswered questions are the most echoing kind. I returned to the motel and found a letter taped to my door. No envelope. Just a single sheet of stationery I recognized from her desk drawer. It wasn't an apology. It was an essay. Dear Elbert, it began. Not babe. Not hun. Elbert. Like she was writing to a colleague. I know I can undo what I've done. Oh, she could try. And she would. I didn't mean to fall in love with someone else. I just stopped recognizing us. I stopped recognizing myself. That part stung. Not because it was new. Because it was familiar. That line, the emotional smoke bomb people throw when they want to ruin a thing without owning the explosion. I never stopped loving you, she wrote next. That's when I stopped reading. Because that line? That's the most dishonest of all. You don't humiliate people you love. You don't replace them while they're still setting the table for dinner. You don't wear someone else's watch while using the one who bought it as a backup plan. I folded the letter once. Then again. Then dropped it in the motel trash. That night, I bought a one-way train ticket. Window seat. No luggage but a backpack and a paperback. The destination didn't matter yet. The direction did. I looked out the window as the landscape blurred by. In the distance, storm clouds rolled over the horizon. But I wasn't worried. Because I had become the kind of man who packs before it rains. And this time, I wasn't looking back. The train rolled out of the station like a whisper. No screech, no farewell whistle. Just the soft glide of metal on track and the quiet departure of a man who'd stopped asking for permission to leave. My new town didn't ask questions. It was a sleepy place with a name you forget halfway through saying it. One stoplight, two diners, a gas station where the cashier knew every regular by the brand of gum they bought. I rented a small place above a hardware store, the kind of place where you could hear the plumbing breathe at night. The walls were thin, but the peace was thick. That was enough. I started over like a man assembling furniture with no instructions, just trial, error, and a lot of quiet. I picked up freelance work, IT consulting, remote security audits. My laptop became my new lifeline. It didn't lie. It didn't change its mind. It just worked. And I worked, too. Efficient. Focused. A man on a mission that no one else could see. But every ghost needs a tether. Mine came in the form of a brown envelope, 2 weeks after I moved in. No return address. Inside, a photo. Me. Sitting at the train station. Bag at my feet. Head down. Taken from behind a column, like someone playing spy with a disposable camera. And scribbled in red ink on the back. Running looks good on you. I didn't panic. I didn't call anyone. I just stared at the photo until it stopped feeling like a threat and started feeling like a confession. Because I knew that handwriting. Tessa's. It was always a little dramatic, like every grocery list might be framed one day. At first, I wondered if it was a peace offering, a weird one, but hers never came wrapped in normal. But then came envelope number 2, a week later. This one had a newspaper clipping from our old town. Engagement off. Local businessman steps back from upcoming wedding. And a post-it note stuck to the corner. Turns out Rory folds his socks too. I laughed. Out loud. Alone in the kitchen, holding a beer and a ghost-written punchline. Then I threw it away. Because what Tessa didn't understand, what she never understood, is that when a man walks away from the fire, it's not because he's weak. It's because he knows the difference between warmth and burning. I let the silence stretch. Then came letter 3. This one was longer. 3 pages, handwritten. The kind of letter you write when you're not sure you'll get to say it out loud. She admitted it. All of it. Not just the affair. Not just the lies. But the why. I like being adored, she wrote. I liked the way he looked at me like I was magic. Funny thing is, I used to look at her that way. She just stopped seeing it. Then came the line that told me everything I needed to know. You didn't fail me, Albert. You just made it too easy to be the worst version of myself. That line? That one hit like a freight train at 2 a.m. Because it was the truth. Some people don't cheat because they're searching for more. They cheat because they're bored with being seen clearly. They mistake stability for stagnation. They see love as a mirror, and when they don't like what they see, they smash the glass. And Tessa? She brought her own hammer. I didn't write back. Didn't email. Didn't text. But I started checking the mailbox more often. Sometimes you don't respond because you're angry. Sometimes it's because silence is the only way to be understood. Then came the phone call. Blocked number. I knew it was her. I let it ring. It went a voicemail. Hey, her voice started. Hesitant. Small. You don't have to talk to me. I know that. I wanted to tell you something. Pause. I sold the house. The one with the dogwood tree. I couldn't stand the silence anymore. It didn't feel like home without the sound of you putting dishes away at 10 p.m. Without your coffee brewing. Without your shoes by the door. She laughed once. It wasn't happy. I guess what I'm saying is, I get it now. Why you left. Why you didn't slam the door or throw a scene. Because the cleanest goodbyes are the ones that haunt. Click. No follow-up. No texts. She'd said her piece. And I finally felt empty. But not the kind of hollow that hurts. The kind that makes space. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I drove to the lake. The one in town. Small, quiet. The water still enough to mistake for glass. I sat on a bench with a coffee and watched the sun go down. There was a couple nearby. Young. Laughing. He offered her his hoodie. She didn't take it, but she smiled like she might next time. And I thought, yeah, maybe someday I'll try again. But for now, let the storm pass. Let the silence settle. Let her memory echo like a storm that already rolled through. Because I'm not lost anymore. I'm just rebuilding. I used to think healing meant erasing. Scrubbing the walls clean of her name. Burning every photo. Purging the playlists. Throwing away the sweatshirt she used to steal because it smelled like me. Turns out, healing isn't erasure. It's architecture. You don't bulldoze the ruins. You study the cracks. You learn where the beams failed. You reinforce. You rebuild. Not to be what you were, but to become something better. Stronger. That's where I was now. It had been over a month since Tessa's last contact. No new envelopes. No midnight voicemails. Just silence. The real kind. The peaceful kind. The kind that doesn't feel like punishment, but possibility. The train town had grown on me. I'd settled into a rhythm, work in the mornings, walks by the lake in the evenings. I got to know Rita, the diner waitress, who started calling me stranger with a wink every time I came in. She poured coffee like a therapist and served advice with a side of sarcasm. One morning, I sat in my usual booth and asked her, "You ever been married?" She didn't miss a beat. Twice. Once for love. Once for lessons. Which one was better? She raised an eyebrow. The lessons. The love was a fool. I chuckled. She poured more coffee. But that fool finally learned to read the fine print. You. Same chapter. Different book, I said. She nodded. Then you're already ahead. That night, I started sleeping through the night again. No more dreams about arguments that never got resolved. No more waking up expecting to hear footsteps in the hallway or the clink of a wine glass being set down just a little too loudly. My body was catching up to what my heart had known for weeks. She was gone, and I wasn't waiting at the window anymore. One Saturday morning, I walked through the farmer's market on Main Street. Bought peaches, a loaf of sourdough, a little jar of local honey that looked like it had been bottled by fairies with strong opinions about pollen. At the last booth, I met a woman named Clara. She was selling handmade journals, the kind bound with twine and care. She asked if I liked to write. Not really, I said, but I think I might need to. She smiled. Start small. One truth a day. So I bought one. That night, I wrote. I was a good husband. She just didn't want a good man. She wanted a new mirror. The next night. Forgiveness isn't a door you open for them. It's a key you give yourself. And the night after that. Even ghosts get tired. It's okay to stop haunting what hurt you. It became a ritual. My way of rebuilding. Of turning pain into pages. I didn't write about her every time. Eventually, the entries shifted. Notes about the lake. About the way the air smelled different after rain. About how silence didn't scare me anymore. It steadied me. One day, I found myself walking past a used bookstore tucked behind a bakery. I wasn't looking for anything, just killing time. But on a shelf near the window, I saw a copy of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Tessa used to read from it when she wanted to sound deep. She liked quoting the part about love and pain being two sides of the same coin. I opened it, half expecting to find her name on the inside cover. Instead, someone else had written, "What breaks you can also build you, but only if you do the building." I bought the book, because maybe that was the point. Not to pretend she never happened, but to stop giving her the power to define what came next. I wasn't Albert, the betrayed anymore. I was just Albert, still standing, still learning, still building. Then came the real test. A friend from the old city texted out of nowhere. Said he'd seen Tessa at a gallery opening. Said she looked different. Not sad, he said. Just quieter. Like someone who finally figured out they weren't the main character in someone else's life. He asked if I wanted him to say anything to her. I told him no. Because what would I even say? That I hope she's well? That I forgive her? That I finally understand why she did what she did? All of that might be true, but none of it changes what came after. See, closure isn't about confrontation. It's not a dramatic speech in a parking lot or a final kiss in the rain. Closure is when the story stops needing a sequel. That night, I wrote one more thing in my journal. I don't want her back. I want me forward. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. 2 months to the day since I left, I opened a drawer in my rental's tiny kitchen and found the envelope. The one I'd thrown in during my first night there. The wedding vows I wrote 10 years ago, back when I thought love was about poetry and potential. I didn't plan to open it, but I did. My handwriting looked younger, more certain. I promise to always make your coffee just the way you like it, I had written. To laugh at your worst jokes and hold you tighter when the world feels too loud. I smiled bitterly, because I had done all that. And somewhere along the line, it had turned into background noise. That's the cruel trick, isn't it? Consistency is only romantic until it becomes invisible. I folded the vows, then tore them clean down the middle. Not out of anger. Out of accuracy. Because none of it was true anymore. And maybe it never had been, not for her. Later that week, I saw Clara again. The journal woman. We bumped into each other near the diner. She asked how the writing was going. It's honest, I said. She laughed. Good. Most people write to be heard. But the good ones write to hear themselves. We had coffee. Talked about books. She had this way of making silence feel like part of the conversation. I didn't tell her about Tessa. Not at first. But eventually, I did. She didn't flinch. Didn't pity me. Just nodded like she'd met my kind before. I was someone's second choice once, she said. Hurts less when you realize they were never your first. That line stayed with me. Because it was true. Tessa hadn't picked me. She had settled into me. Worn me like a cardigan, comfortable, familiar, easy to forget at the back of the closet. But Clara? Clara asked questions. Listened to the answers. Looked at me like I hadn't already been broken and glued back together. We didn't rush anything. We weren't writing a new love story. Just sharing the quiet. And sometimes, that was louder than anything I'd had before. It was almost fall when I got the message. Not from Tessa. From her sister, Lorna. A photo, same as before. But this one wasn't a tabloid or a party. It was a hospital room. Tessa, sitting in a chair beside a bed. Pale. Smaller. Different. She had a scare, Lorna wrote. Nothing life-threatening, but it rattled her. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Then came another message. She's not asking for anything. But she said she hopes you're okay. That was it. No manipulations. No apologies. No bait. Just a distant wave from someone on the far shore of a life I'd already swum away from. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Or grief. Just distance. The kind that isn't cold, but earned. I deleted the message. And I kept walking. A year passed. The hardware store below me got new signage. The diner started offering oat milk. I traded my old truck for a used hybrid with less personality but better mileage. Clara and I grew into something soft. No labels. No grand promises. Just two people who made space for each other's silence. One night, we sat by the lake, watching the sun bleed into the water. She asked, if you could go back, would you do anything differently? I shook my head. No. Because I would have never ended up here. She smiled. And here's not so bad, huh? I looked at her. At the sky. At the stillness I had fought to earn. No, I said. Here's perfect. And that was it. No revenge. No fire. Just a man who once folded his socks, made perfect coffee, and walked away quietly. And finally, found peace in the sound of his own story turning the page.